Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Clark Crawford Sports Talk. Today, I'm going to give you exclusively NFL talk, my week NFL season recap so far through 5 weeks of the season. So let's dive into some NFL action. To start off, we're going to speak on the Thursday night football game. We had the Bears versus the Commanders. The Bears pick up their first win of the season in dominating fashion against the Commanders. Justin Fields was excellent on Thursday, throwing for 4 touchdowns against what I expected to be a better Commanders defense. It was not. So Justin Fields dominated. He's got 8 touchdowns in his last 2 games. So that's good news for the Bears. Now the question is he your franchise quarterback? And with the 1-4 start, picking up their first win of the season, the Bears are probably going to have another top 10 pick unless they turn their season around fast. So we'll see what the Bears have in store for us the rest of the season. But as far as I'm concerned, they probably should get rid of their coach, Matt Eberflus. And along with that, I would also go in another direction and get a new quarterback. But that's for the Bears to decide. And with that, we're going to move along to the Commanders, who lost 40-20 to the Chicago Bears, as I mentioned on Thursday night. It's another bad loss for Washington. They're really in a bad place in the NFL right now. They're really in NFL mediocrity. And like the Bears, I think they need to be searching for a new quarterback at the end of the season and a new head coach, Ron Rivera. It's time to move on from him. He's not been great with Washington. He had one winning season, and other than that, one division title, he's not the answer. Draft a quarterback early in the draft. If I'm Washington, I go ahead and tank the rest of the season with a good quarterback class coming out and see if you can start within the next 2 to 3, 4 years, start turning that franchise around, because I think Washington needs some major changes. Moving on to the next set of games, you had the NFL London for a second straight week. The Jaguars were in London and they picked up their second consecutive win. They beat a good Bills team who we'll get into next. And the Jaguars, as I said, won for their second consecutive week. And they are 3-2 after 5 weeks now. Trevor Lawrence looked okay. The Travis Etienne carried them to the win against a good Buffalo defense. It was surprising. I had Buffalo in that game. With how stagnant the Jaguars' offense has been, they picked a lot of field goals, especially in the red zone so far this year. Jaguars' biggest issue is they need to finish off drives the rest of the season. If not, they could get what was expected to be Jacksonville's division stolen from them. So if Jacksonville starts to finish off drives, I have high hopes for them the rest of the season. Trevor Lawrence has been okay so far. He needs to step it up and take that year 3 leap. With year 2 under Doug Peterson. Now, I know his rookie year wasn't great because he had arguably one of the worst coaches ever in the NFL, Urban Meyer, who did not treat his players well. But now he's got Doug Peterson, so things for Jacksonville's sake should be looking up as they move along to 3-2 after 5 weeks and sit up top the AFC South. Next off, you got Buffalo, who lost to Jacksonville. They did not score till the end of the first half, so that was a problem for them. They only lost 25-20, so they tried to mount a comeback in the second half and fell short. Buffalo, their offense was out of sync after they just came off of an impressive win against the Miami Dolphins, who the week before put up 70 on the Denver Broncos. So Buffalo is out of sync. They also might have lost starting linebacker Matt Milano for the season. Nothing's been reported if it's a season-ending injury yet, but that's going to be a big problem for Buffalo, as he's definitely going to miss probably at least 4 to 6 weeks, if not longer. That knee injury did not look good for his sake. And also, Buffalo lost their star corner, Tre'Davious White. Buffalo, I don't know how many more big injuries to key players you can sustain and continue to sustain really good play on the field. I know they still have their offense intact with James Cook. You've got rookie tight end Dalton Kincaid. You still got Dawson Knox. You've still got Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, of course. So at least they have their offense intact. But as far as their defense, it's starting to take hits. Now, they did just get Von Miller back, who will probably be eased back from his season ending injury last year. So that's at least a bit of good news for Buffalo. But as for injuries, they're starting to pile up for Buffalo. So we'll see if they can sustain their winning record, as they are still 3-2 after 5 weeks. So at least you got that going for you, Buffalo, and you still have Josh Allen healthy. So with Josh Allen healthy, they should still make the playoffs, but we will see in the coming weeks. Next up is Tennessee. They fell to the Colts 23-16. They're 2-3 on the year. This is not a good Tennessee offense. Their defense is really keeping them in games with the solid performances, but their offense is just arguably bottom 5 in the league. I mean, you've got Derrick Henry, who, yeah, he's Derrick Henry, but I think he's even starting to lose a step. Ryan Tannehill is clearly not the answer. I thought they should have moved on from Tannehill 2 years ago. You've got Malik Willis and recently drafted Will Levis in the building. I think if I were them, I would split time between the two quarterbacks. One play, 1 week. If he does well, he gets to play the next week. And get them both a couple of starts the rest of the year and see if you have a franchise quarterback in one of the two. If not, if I'm Tennessee, which I think is the likely scenario, neither one out of Willis and Levis are the answer. Tennessee, in my opinion, should be looking for another quarterback, as Tennessee is now 2-3 on the season. They might be the bottom feeders in the AFC South this year, but there's still a lot of season left. So Tennessee has time to turn it around. But if you ask me, it's not going to happen. Tennessee fans, you should look forward to next season. On the flip side, they face the Indianapolis Colts, who beat Tennessee and are now 3-2 on the year. Unfortunately, Anthony Richardson, your promising young QB, is now hurt for the second time this year and is out a minimum 4 weeks this time. Last time he had a concussion. This time he's on IR and out at least 4 weeks. So if I'm the Colts, I'm not overly concerned about his durability, but you might start having some durability questions if he were to get hurt next year as well, because that's 2 injuries within the first 5 weeks of his NFL career. That's not a good sign, but it's not ultimately deciding whether that decides his career or not. So we will see if Richardson can stay healthy after he comes back from this injury, which he's expected to come back. And the good news for the Colts was the return of Jonathan Taylor. He was on a limited snap count. So for those of you fantasy gurus, good news, Jonathan Taylor's back. They just paid him. He's going to be the workhorse coming up probably 2 to 3 weeks from now. Give him time to get reacclimated. He hasn't played in a game since last season, so he's going to need some time. This should help improve their offense, but with Gardner Minshew, you're in capable hands. The Colts are, as I'm going to call them, a sleeper playoff team to sneak into one of those last couple of wild card spots. And if you make the playoffs, that's a successful season for the rookie head coach who they got from the Philadelphia Eagles. So a solid season so far from the Colts. Unfortunately, injuries to your rookie QB. So the Colts are looking up, but with a little bit of a halt to their season, because you would rather have Anthony Richardson in there rather than the rookie you rather have the rookie QB in there rather than Gardner Minshew right now leading your season. But nonetheless, the Colts are 3-2. Moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals, who easily had their best game of the season in a 34-20 win. Burrow looked better, but there's still concerns about Burrow's injury from the preseason. He did throw 3 touchdowns, which is easily a season high, all 3 to Jamar Chase, who had a ridiculous 15-catch game. Now, there was no T. Higgins, so that impacts your offense when he is able to come back a little bit. But for the most part, you still got Jamar Chase, you still got Joe Mixon, so they got plenty of playmakers, and also Tyler Boyd to sustain if Higgins is out. another week, 2 weeks. Everything I've seen, it's still unsure what is going to happen with Higgins. But my biggest question for Cincinnati is, can the defense hold up? I know they lost several guys from their defense in the offseason. And also, can Burrow play at the MVP level he's expected to? And then my other question is, has T. Higgins also played his last season in Cincinnati, as he is a pending free agent? Will you have the money? Because I know Jamar Chase is upset there right now. I know he had his 3 touchdown game, but Jamar Chase also wants to get paid. Can you afford to pay Mixon, Burrow, Higgins, and Chase? It sounds like, as of right now, Higgins might be the odd one out. So that's another looming question for Cincinnati. But right now, they're 2-3, and they're just trying to focus on turning their season around. I believe Cincinnati will still squeak into one of those last playoff spots because of they're too talented not to, in my mind. But Cincinnati has a lot of questions going into week 6 and moving on to the rest of the season. Now, for Cincinnati's opponent, Arizona, they lost to Cincinnati 34-20. They fall to 1-4. This looked more like the team we expected out of Arizona, as they traded several players coming out of camp and after the preseason. Late in the preseason, they traded several players away who were expected to be starters for them. So Arizona is clearly tanking. As for their quarterback situation, Josh Dobbs has actually played pretty well for a guy who hasn't had 40, 50 starts in the league. He's only had a handful. I believe as of right now, he's at least better than Kyler Murray coming off that injury. If I'm Arizona, I move off of Kyler Murray in the offseason, even if you just straight release him or trade him for a 5th-round pick to get somebody to take on a lot of that cap hit. That's better than keeping Kyler Murray around. I think Kyler's had his time in Arizona, and it's time with your rookie head coach, Jonathan Gannon, to move on and let him take the keys of the franchise and draft the QB he would want to draft, because Arizona is going to be drafting at the top of the draft more than likely. So Arizona, brace yourselves. It's probably going to be a rough one the rest of the season. Moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles, who won to improve to 5-0. Wasn't their best game, just like you can say pretty much all of their games this year. Now they've managed to win them, but the Eagles haven't looked like the Eagles of last season. Now, you expected some regression moving from Miles Sanders to DeAndre Swift. You weren't sure what you were going to get there, but the Eagles' offense has not quite looked the same. Now, like I said, I expected a little regression because when you have an incredible regular season as they did, you usually don't have 2 seasons in a row quite like that, as how dominant they were. Now, Jalen Hurts has still been solid, but like I said, not as good as last year. You've still got A.J. Brown. You still got Devonta Smith. You still got Dallas Goedert. They've got plenty of weapons. I expect the Eagles' offense to get better as the season moves on, but as of right now, it's only a tad concerning considering their defense is still dominant. They keep drafting players out of Georgia on the defensive side of the ball, and their defense, in my opinion, really hasn't missed a beat. And the defense is keeping them right there. The Eagles are legit Super Bowl contenders, and they're going to continue to win a lot of games this season. So the Eagles 5-0. Good for you, Eagles fans. Y'all are going to have another good season and potentially your second Super Bowl coming your way. As for the Eagles' opponent, the Rams lost to the Eagles to move to 2-3. Good news for the Rams. Cooper Kupp is back, and he looks like the Cooper Kupp of old. You weren't sure coming off that injury what he was going to look like, but good news. You've got 2 legit receivers now with Cooper Kupp and Puka. Though they could form possibly the best wide receiver tandem in the league. From what I've seen of Puka so far, he's been incredible. That could be a dominant 1-2 punch for years to come if they can both stay healthy with the emergence of the rookie. The Rams are a good enough team to grab a playoff spot from what I've seen. You still got dominating Aaron Donald on the defensive side of the ball, which is more than enough to make up for some other deficiencies that they have. So the Rams, I'm going to say they sneak into that one of those last playoff spots because of how they've looked. Stafford has yet another weapon with one of the top receivers in the league, easily top 10 in Cooper Kupp. So the Rams have enough. And surprisingly, if you told me before the season, I did not have the Rams in the playoffs, but as of right now, I'm putting the Rams in the playoffs. The Jets faced a bad Broncos team. The Jets aren't a very good team themselves, but the Jets managed to win 31-21. The Jets are 2-3 now in the season after having it derailed due to Aaron Rodgers' season-ending injury. But Zach Wilson, he's getting one last chance in New York at least to see if he's starter level worthy. I got news. I haven't seen it. He's played all 5 weeks now. As he, other than 4 snaps, he played all of week one. Zach Wilson is not the quarterback of the future. Robert Saleh keeps. Excuse me. Robert Saleh he keeps saying Zach Wilson's my guy. Zach Wilson's my guy. I think you need to move on and make a trade for the quarterback at the deadline, and keep Zach Wilson on the roster. And then after this season, cut ties with him. And the Jets need to be looking for their new franchise quarterback. But as of right now, they sit 2-3. And I do not have the Jets moving on and making the playoffs. The Broncos, who lost to the Jets, are 1-4 now. The Sean Payton Russell Wilson marriage does not look great right now, though I will say Russell Wilson, if you're Sean Payton, has not been your biggest problem on the year. Russell Wilson has looked much improved, not necessarily a top 5 or quite a top 10 quarterback this year, but from last year to this year, he's much improved, at least you can say that. He's got the offensive weapons. But the rumors are the Broncos are going to move on from some of those weapons. And Sean Payton might completely tear it down. We will see what happens. As you know, with the massive contract they gave Sean Payton, he has full control of that franchise. So if he even wanted to move on from Russell Wilson, which I think is a mistake right now, I would give him at least one more year because he's looked better this year compared to last. Broncos need a lot of help. They are now 1-4 on the season, and Bronco fans, you should probably look for some more ugly times this year, and you're not likely to make the playoffs. So good luck next season and in the off season. The Houston Texans, who are my team, lost a heartbreaker 21-19 on Sunday. They had every chance to win that Falcons game, but their problem was they kicked 4 field goals and only scored 1 touchdown. Now, the good news is CJ Stroud led a drive late in the fourth quarter, which resulted in that touchdown. The problem was he didn't lead any other touchdown drives in the rest of the game. But Stroud did look solid again, did not throw a pick. He now has the rookie record for most pass attempts without an interception. So you have that, Texan fans, as myself. This is one of those games that Houston is going to learn from with a rookie head coach, rookie QB. The Texans are now 2-3 on the season. If you get him some more weapons in the offseason, and that is Stroud, and keep building up the defense. I've seen solid performances from the defense that Houston could be in the playoffs sooner than expected if they continue to keep this up and Stroud stays healthy. I have the Texans potentially as a playoff team next year. I think it would be better suited if they didn't make it this year as a learning curve, and the Texans are 2-3 on the year with a heartbreaker loss to the Atlanta Falcons. Desmond Ridder had easily his best game of his pro career with the Falcons win over the Texans. He utilized his big-time first-round pick weapons that he has with Atlanta. They've got Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London in the last 3 drafts. Desmond Ridder needs to use all 3 of his big-time weapon first-round picks even more. And if Desmond Ridder continues to play like he did on Sunday in the 21-19 win, as he threw for over 300 yards, he will have a good chance to keep his job long term. As of right now, my prediction is Desmond Ridder does not keep the job long term because too much inconsistency there from him. I don't have the confidence, as I'm not sure Arthur Smith, his head coach, does, but we'll see what happens. But after 5 weeks, the Falcons are 3-2 on the season. The Lions won again Sunday and are 2 games ahead atop the NFC North, and they're 4-1. Jared Goff has looked solid again, just as he had a nice season last year, without 2 of their explosive playmakers, which made the win more impressive, without Amon-Ra St. Brown and first-round rookie running back Jahmyr Gibbs. Detroit they keep playing like this, they should easily run away with the division with the Bears, the struggling Packers, and the struggling Vikings. I love that the Lions are starting to become a good team. I love Dan Campbell. I love his mentality. He is instilling a winning culture in Detroit, and I love the parody in the NFL of Detroit's good. You know, they're not the laughing stock. Now the big question for Detroit is, can you finally win a Thanksgiving game? So we'll see if Detroit can win a Thanksgiving game this year. But 4-1, great start for the Lions. They're a top 5 team in the NFL right now. Top 5. Carolina is coming off of a loss to Detroit. They're an abysmal 0-5. They did not do themselves any favors in the offseason. I know they moved up to the number 1 pick, and Bryce Young, they think is their QB. He may or may not be. I don't think they have enough weapons to fully be able to give Bryce a true grade this season. They traded away their best offensive weapon in DJ Moore. They did bring in Miles Sanders, but he has not been good to start the season. He may improve as the season goes on, but they really don't have any weapons. I mean, their best offensive weapon this season has been 33-year-old Adam Thielen, who's had a few injuries throughout his career. So we'll see if Thielen can keep it up. He's a solid receiver, but right now, and at this point of his career, really Thielen should be your number 3 receiver, maybe your number 2. But on a really good team, a 33-year-old receiver should probably be your third best receiver, not your first best. So we'll see if the Panther fans can maybe get a couple of wins. They do not own their first round pick, which is their biggest issue because they traded away to trade up for Bryce Young. And without owning your 2024 first round pick, you really want to win at least 4 or 5 games. Now, whether that's going to happen, I'd say probably not. But the Panther fans, you should look forward to next season. Maybe spend some money on some offensive weapons in the offseason. Your best bet would probably be, I think the best receiver on the market is going to be T. Higgins. I would throw a bag at T. Higgins and see if you can get him to come to Carolina in the offseason. The Saints blew out the New England Patriots 34 to nothing on Sunday with Derek Carr. Their team has improved from last season. Now, how much we're going to see, as they did have that impressive win in a tough environment, one of the toughest environments in the league in New England. Alvin Kamara has returned from suspension for 2 games now after his mistake that he made 2 off seasons ago. The usage, I had a lot of questions concerning Kamara. Was he washed up in the offseason? But Kamara has looked much better because his utilization is much better. Last season they didn't throw Kamara nearly enough passes. He's more of that Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara type pass catching back who you need to throw him the ball in space. A lot of the times when I watched a few New Orleans games last year, it would be run up the middle with Kamara, run up the middle. And it was constantly the same play over and over again. Alvin Kamara is not a Derrick Henry kind of back who can sustain those kind of hits and can run over a big 320-pound defensive lineman. Alvin Kamara needs to get out in space, which is how they're using him so far this season. And also, the Saints need to continue to feed their other young wide receivers, such as Chris Olave. And I think good things will come in New Orleans. They are 3-2 now on the season. And New Orleans is looking good coming into a matchup in Houston this weekend against the Houston Texans. The New England Patriots have been dreadful this offseason, going into year 4 without Tom Brady now. Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick needs to retire. I would not keep going on like this. It would drive me crazy. The quarterback situation is abysmal. Mac Jones, I'm gonna break it to you now, Patriot fans, is not the answer. You're 1-4 on the year. He's throwing pick sixes left and right. He's thrown several already this season. He threw an abysmal one on Sunday to the Saints. Try and throw the ball across the field. I've never played the quarterback position in a college or a high school game in my life, but even I learned that playing a bunch of flag football growing up. The Patriots are not a good team right now. They have a solid defense, but they've had several injuries. but their offense is abysmal. They can't even block enough to get their best weapon, Ramondre Stevenson, going. Patriots, your season is in the toilet. If I were you, I would tank because it's a good quarterback class, and Patriots, in my opinion, need to move on from their head coach Bill Belichick. Get a younger guy in there. Try to instill that winning culture you had for years without NFL great or with NFL great Tom Brady. Moving on to the New York Giants, I'm going to break it to you. Last year was a fluke for the Giants. They overachieved. They're 1-4 this season with, in my opinion, the worst offense in the NFL right now. I know they have a ton of injuries to their offensive line, but Daniel Jones, who may not even play this week, which would make matters even worse for them to go to Tyrod Taylor. They might be without Darren Waller and also Saquon Barkley yet again. I know Barkley's been hurt a ton, and he did get paid for 1 year this year. If I'm Saquon Barkley, I get out of New York as quick as I can in the offseason, go get paid somewhere else, even if it's a little bit less money. The Giants are not a good team. They paid Daniel Jones a ton of money, so I don't see them drafting a quarterback in the first round, which I think they should this offseason. But Daniel Jones, paying him looks like a massive mistake. And at 1-4, Giants, your season's a train wreck, and it's not likely to turn around with all the injuries and the bad quarterback play. So, Giants fans, my word of advice, start looking forward to next season. We move on to the Miami Dolphins. They had yet another impressive win. They're 4-1 on the year. Their only loss was to Buffalo, and they put up 70 points this season. So, the Dolphins are looking great this year at 4-1. They are easily the quickest team speed wise in the NFL. Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Waddle, even Tua. Not the quickest player on the team, but even he's got a bit of speed. I mean, you've just got so many playmakers all across the board. That offense is legit. The defense is playing well. A lot of things are clicking for Miami. The bad news is Devon Achane is going to miss several weeks. They placed him on IR as well. So as long as they can keep Mostert healthy, and I know they have several other backs in their running back room that are capable of putting up good numbers, as long as they can keep them healthy, and especially Tua Tagovailoa healthy, as long as his concussion problems or his other injury history does not come back, I believe Miami has a real good chance of winning their division, and also they should easily cruise to a playoff spot. And Miami's in a good spot. And for me, they are a legit Super Bowl contender if they can stay healthy. So that remains to be seen. But Miami is off to a hot start at 4-1. The Ravens versus Steelers was your usual drama fest last week as Pittsburgh ended up stealing the game away from Baltimore, who had so many chances to try to put the game away, but a late long touchdown pass from Kenny Pickett to George Pickens ended up getting the Steelers the win 17-10. It was a fantastic defensive game as expected. I only wish I had bet the under on that game. The Steelers are 3-2 atop the AFC North after 5 weeks. That division has not been great. All three teams are bunched up within a game of each other, so that's likely going to change and be a carousel of a division change throughout the entire season. 1 week Pittsburgh might lead it, then next in Cleveland, Cincinnati, Baltimore. So likely that division is going to change hands several times throughout the rest of the season. As for the Steelers side, you got Kenny Pickett as your quarterback. Is he a franchise quarterback? Is he not? That was a great throw to George Pickens, but the rest of the game he didn't look great. But on the flip side, the Steelers did win the game because you have a guy named TJ Watt leading that defense. He leads the league with 8 sacks. So Steelers I know they're blessed to have him, but Kenny Pickett is going to have to step up his play if the Steelers want to win the AFC North. Baltimore lost bad game to the Steelers. Like I was saying, as I was talking about the Steelers, Baltimore had every chance to win that game. They're 3-2 along with the Steelers, but with the Steelers win, they are percentage points ahead of Baltimore for the division lead. Baltimore controlled that game. Lamar Jackson did not play well enough to win. I know you're dealing with TJ Watt, but hey, even the Texans' broken down offensive line was able to stop TJ Watt and win that game. And Baltimore. So, as for Baltimore, you need Lamar Jackson to get back to his MVP form for them to have a shot and possibly represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I don't think it happens for Baltimore this year. You did lose J.K. Dobbins to a season-long injury. He's been injury-prone throughout his whole career, but Baltimore just simply doesn't have enough weapons. Yes, Zay Flowers, your rookie first-round wide receiver, has looked good, but they don't have much of a run game without J.K. Dobbins. Lamar Jackson is basically a running back trying to play quarterback, in my opinion, as you do have Mark Andrews, you do have Zay Flowers, but they don't have enough. They have a solid defense, but sorry to break it to you, Baltimore fans, but you will not be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl and will not be, obviously won't be winning a Super Bowl this season. Next up is the Kansas City Chiefs, who, after dropping the season opener on their ring night, their banner night, they won their fourth consecutive game in their effort to try to repeat as Super Bowl champions. They won a close game against Minnesota. I'm not going to get into the logistics of the end of the game. Maybe it was a pass interference, maybe it wasn't. But regardless, Patrick Mahomes and company improved to 4-1. Now, Travis Kelce did go down in that game, but luckily for Chiefs fans, he returned to the game. He has an ankle injury. As of right now, he's questionable to play as I record this video on Thursday morning. It sounds like he's going to play in the Thursday night game, which is great for Kansas City, which I have Kansas City beating Denver in that Thursday night game this week. Kansas City, they're Super Bowl contenders again. I know their wide receiver play isn't great, but as long as you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce healthy, they're Super Bowl contenders. They got Chris Jones back. They're all elite defender, all Pro Bowl, all that. So Kansas City, like I said, they're legit Super Bowl contenders, and they're here to defend their title. And until they get dethroned, I have them likely coming out of the AFC. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get a different team this year, but I think Kansas City has a very good chance of winning another Super Bowl. Minnesota won double-digit one-score games last year. They are 0-3 in one-score games this year. Their defense is a bit improved, but not nearly enough. Bad news for Minnesota. Justin Jefferson, your all-pro, possibly, and at least in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the NFL. He's on IR out minimum 4 weeks, and it could be a Cooper Kupp situation like last year. And Cooper Kupp got held out the rest of the year, even though it was possibly reported he was healthy the last few games of the year when the Rams were tanking. The Vikings could very well do that for a better draft pick this year. Now, Kirk Cousins is a free agent, and that's who Justin Jefferson wants to play with. So he could very well demand a trade, as the Vikings are just trying to get their season on track. They're 1-4. The Vikings have been a disappointment, but Kirk Cousins is going to try to lead the charge and get them back in the playoff hunt. If you gave me odds, I would say the Vikings missed the playoffs, but you never know. They could squeak into that last spot. I think that's their only chance by squeaking into that last spot. They're going to need a lot of help, but certainly offensively, they're still talented enough to make the playoffs with rookie Jordan Addison as a solid start to his rookie year. And they also have TJ Hawkinson, who they got last year from the Lions, and then Kirk Cousins if he plays well enough, and then Alexander Mattison and Cam Akers running the ball. So they've got plenty of playmakers. If the offense can start playing as well as they did last year, Minnesota might squeak into the last playoff spot. The Cowboys lost their second blowout of the season and possibly one of the worst losses in the league to a very good 49ers team. Here's my biggest issue. Dak Prescott promised he wouldn't throw 10 interceptions this year. Well, I got news, Cowboy fans. He's throwing more than 10 interceptions. He threw 3 against the 49ers. They were all bad interceptions as well. Just terrible decision-making by your quarterback. And Dallas fans, you're stuck with Prescott because if they were going to get rid of him, they would have done it by now. You gave Jerry Jones gave him that massive contract, which I said at the time was a huge mistake. Dak Prescott is not the quarterback that's going to take you to the promised land. He's got 4 interceptions now after promising he wouldn't have more than 10 on the year. Well, guess what? Dak is interception and turnover prone. So my prediction is he throws 12 interceptions on the season, and the Cowboys are now 3-2 on the year. They have a mediocre quarterback at best. Also, star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb is beefing with star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb is beefing with coach Mike McCarthy, so that's another issue for Dallas. Is CeeDee going to start getting the ball, which I think they need to feed him more because he's only averaging 4 catches a game. From your number one wide receiver, that's awful, who you're likely going to pay in the offseason. You need more production out of him, but to me, he's simply not getting the ball, and when he is, I've seen a lot of underthrows from Dak Prescott. So Dallas is 3-2 on the year as they go into a Monday night game with the Chargers. We'll see if Dallas can try to get their season back on track on Monday night. The 49ers are the most impressive team in the league in my mind. They're 5-0. They're clicking on all cylinders. They got Nick Bosa back right before the year. He's been solid so far, not great. But the 49ers, even with losing defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans to the Texans, who is now their head coach, they're 5-0, clicking on all cylinders. They're a top 3 team in the league, if not the best team in the league, with an impressive 42-10 win over the Cowboys. Through 5 weeks, you got 2 MVP candidates in the top 10 with Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey. They haven't missed a beat, and unless a major collapse occurs, they're going to be one of the top 2 seeds in the NFC. So everything's going right so far for the 49ers, knock on wood, as they're likely to continue their dominating season. Next team on the list, we've got the Green Bay Packers, who lost an ugly low-scoring game, 17-13 to of all teams, the Las Vegas Raiders, who are not a good team in themselves. Jordan Love throws 3 interceptions against one of the worst teams in the league. That's concerning if you ask me. In my mind, Jordan Love, is he the answer? It's yet another team with quarterback questions. We'll see what happens. I've seen a flash or 2 from Jordan Love, but not enough for me to be convinced he's your quarterback of the future. Now, I know the Packers have been playing several games without running back Aaron Jones. It looks like they desperately need him for Jordan Love to look good. You got Christian Watson back a few games ago, but even then, Jordan Love can't seem to find his best receivers, as Watson, in my opinion, is his best receiver. Other than a 77-yard catch, he only had 2 catches the rest of the game. That's a major concern for me. The Packers are now 2-3 on the year, and in my opinion, you have a major quarterback question in Green Bay. The Las Vegas Raiders won against Green Bay, improving their record to 2-3. If you ask me, the Raiders got lucky to win that football game. They didn't play well themselves, but when crunch time came, their defense stepped up with a huge interception in the final 2 minutes to secure the victory. In my opinion, Raider fans, it was a mistake to sign Jimmy Garoppolo. I would have gone in a younger direction at quarterback. Yeah, you drafted Aiden O'Connell, but that's the best you could do was Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell. Neither one are going to be your quarterback of the future, as Garoppolo will survive that contract and then probably move on. You have disgruntled star receiver Davante Adams and a bad head coach who I think you should move on from Josh McDaniels after the season, regardless of how the season goes. He should not survive the season. He's not a good head coach. He's one of those guys meant to be a offensive coordinator, but the Raiders gave him a ton of money and he accepted the job, and the Raiders are 2-3 on the year, and their season's not going to get much better, if any better at all. If I'm the Raiders, I tank for a draft pick. The last 4 teams who were on bye week last week. We'll go through them here. You had the Browns, the Chargers, the Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll start with the Browns. As I said, they had a bye week. They're 2-2 through 5 weeks of play. In the Browns Week 4 matchup, Deshaun Watson was a healthy scratch, so that's a concern. Apparently, he decided not to play. He was battling an injury, which may be a good decision, but it just sounds like a bad rap that he's going to get now because the medical doctors cleared him to play, but he decided not to play. So I'm wondering if him and head coach Kevin Stefanski are going to beef or something, or if another report comes out that maybe he wasn't cleared. So to me, that's a bad look for the Cleveland Browns as they've been okay so far. Their defense has been dominant, but Deshaun Watson didn't play in week 4 and you got blown out. So the Browns sit at 2-2, and we'll see if Watson, who got an insane amount of money to be Cleveland's quarterback, actually will step on the field, or what if he goes off the rails and requests a trade? I don't know what's going on in Cleveland. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders. They might squeak into the playoffs, but my money's on the Browns miss the playoffs, and I believe they're regretting that massive Deshaun Watson contract that he did not deserve at the time. The Chargers are the next team who were on bye week in week 5. They sit at 2-2 like the Browns. Justin Herbert's looked incredible with offensive coordinator Kellen Moore coming over from the Cowboys. Kellen Moore is leading that charge. Him, Moore, and Justin Herbert are leading that passing attack, which is top 5 in the league, even though they are missing Mike Williams for the rest of the year, and they missed Austin Eckler for most of the year. The Chargers, if they improve their defense and Herbert keeps playing like he has been and continuing his early season success, the Chargers, in my opinion, if the offense can play like this, they're a dark horse Super Bowl contender, and I have the Chargers making the playoffs for a second consecutive season. The Seahawks are currently 3-1 after 4 weeks. They've had all around good play, solid play from their offense, and great play from their defense. It's been an impressive start for them. It's a balanced attack offensively and defensively, as I've said. And like the Chargers, I have the Seahawks as a dark horse Super Bowl contender. They're a sneaky team that can make some noise in the playoffs. Geno Smith has revived his career in Seattle last season and this season. He got rightfully paid, and the Seattle Seahawks, if the cards fall their way, I could see them in the NFC title game or even possibly in the Super Bowl. They are a legit team, a legit 3-1, and I am extremely excited to watch them the rest of the season. The last team I'm going to go through today, team 32 out of 32, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, like the Seattle Seahawks, are 3-1 on the year and had a week 4 bye. Or excuse me, week 5 bye week. They're one of the most surprising teams in the league at 3-1. Baker Mayfield, is he reviving his career? Is it a fluke? We're going to find out. I think he might be reviving his career. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Baker Mayfield's looked pretty good so far. He's leaning on veteran receivers, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, which is great for his career to have those two receivers. He's really leaning on them. They're coming through. Both of them, plus their outstanding defensive play, are big reasons why Tampa Bay is 3-1. Mike Evans is probably going to have his 10th consecutive, which is an NFL record, 1,000-yard season. So if he does that, early congratulations to Mike Evans. As long as he stays healthy, he's getting to that 1,000 yards. He's been outstanding. I hope Baker Mayfield continues his consistency, and if he does, Tampa Bay will find their way back in the 2023 postseason, and they've been an exciting team, so I hope they continue to improve and make the playoffs because the way they're playing, they can make some noise. This has been my Week 5 season review so far for all 32 NFL teams in the 2023 season. Lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of surprises, and it's been an exciting season to say the least. I hope it continues, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes. And in another video coming up in the future, I'll give you my NFL playoff preview, my Super Bowl picks, my Super Bowl contenders, all that good stuff. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video.